Video, we're going to show how the Boardwalk Digital Ledger can be used to manage contracts across multiple contractors and users, so a business can have better visibility into exactly what's being spent and where they are in terms of obligated funds and other parts of managing contracts in general. What you're looking at is the opening screen for a Boardwalk Digital Ledger template, where a user can come in and say, okay, I want to be able to log into the Boardwalk environment. And when you log into the Boardwalk environment, the person gets authenticated. And what it's doing is it's looking at the ledger and it's saying, what contracts does this person have access to? So the first thing it does is it fetches all the contracts that are available. And these are the ones that this person actually has access to get some data for. So I'll go ahead and select Ask Combined Analytics. And at this point, it then goes back to the ledger and it says, find all the supporting areas of data that I'm working with in terms of the contract information and bring that down into my local Excel on my desktop and make it easy for me to interact with this information and provide the data to the lead of this contract. So you can see the lead is the Jason or Cadman and Tara. What's the vendor name? When was the contract awarded? When was it started? And this information then drives the data that's collected on the actual worksheets inside the workbook itself. So you can see here, these are the actual dollars or the actual hours, and you can see when people are putting that information in, and you can see when the period started. So this is dynamic based on the information that's actually in the contract tab itself. So here are the actual hours, and then those hours get dollarized, and the way they get dollarized is there's a master table that says, what are the labor rates associated across all these different types of labor categories, and who are the people that are actually involved in this process. And you can see if they're active or interactive and when they were involved or if they were departed in terms of the project. And then this information rolls up that says, what is the spend plan? What are the obligated funds associated with these different contracts? So all the different components associated with analytics and collaboration on contracts are available and used in these types of processes. So I'm going to come in now as a user and say, okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and simply change this to be 140 and say that's how much I did in terms of work for this particular time. And there's really no other update I'm going to make here because I'm just going to go ahead and change my hours. And then if I come back and I say, well, I submit that, then it says, do you want to submit all the data? Because obviously all this information is associated. So I'm going to say these are my updates, and I say okay. And then what it does is it jumps across all these individual tabs in the workbook. It finds the data that's changed, takes only those cells that have been updated, and pushes those back to the ledger. And it can have validation checks to say, you've put in too many hours for a particular period, and this can be approved by somebody. But generally, really what it's focused on is on an application contract basis, you're able to go in and interact with the data and make it available to other users. So now if I go back as the user JB, and the user JB is actually somebody who's already downloaded this workbook and has this on their desktop, then if I come in and I say refresh and say go find this information on the ledger and bring me in the most current data, without having to do any emailing or sending anything back and forth, I can go find the latest change, and here it is right here. It's showing me that the old value was 125, the new value is 140. And I could come in and say, well, show me a history of that data so I can see, how many times did this individual make these changes over time. And of course, since this is now active data, all of this rolls up, including all the way to the point where I can say, what are my total expenditures so far in terms of obligated spend. And then I can say, well, let's take a look at how this looks from a graphing basis and see how am I doing in terms of my obligated spend, my spend by period. It looks like we're pretty consistent. So overall, it looks like this project's in pretty good shape. So this is just a quick example of how the Boardwalk Digital Ledger can be used to manage contract data across multiple vendors and contracts for a company.